At the end of yesterday's read aloud of Probation for Affluenza Teen in Deadly Drunk Driving Crash Sparks Anger, we discussed the ways in which journalists can sometimes organize their writing. Oftentimes they start with basic background knowledge, then use headings to move into the more specific parts of their writing. In today's Talk Aloud, the learning outcome is I can use how an author organizes a text to help me understand how to create meaning. Remember that a talk aloud oftentimes focuses on what the writer did to help me understand what I read or what the author did that I liked or appreciated. In this newspaper article, the author divided the text into 3 sections. The first section did not have a heading, which tells me the author is providing me with background information I need to be able to understand the rest of the text. Following that introduction, the author uses headings. When an author uses headings, he or she is letting me know what I need to focus on. If I lack background knowledge concerning a particular piece of text, I can use the heading to create a question to guide my reading. Remember that oftentimes writers organize text to help a reader create meaning. It is our job as a reader to use this organization to help us understand what the author wants us to learn after we have read the text. Now I'm going to move over into a think aloud. And I want you to remember that a think aloud is what I do as a reader with the text in front of me to create meaning. In this particular think aloud, the learning outcome is I can use the organizational structure of a text to create questions to guide my reading. Using headings to create questions allows me as a reader to check my understanding of what the author has written when I reach the end of a particular section. If I have a question that needs to be answered as I read, I will be searching for the answers to my own questions as opposed to simply reciting the words while I read. As I look through this text and the organizational structure of this text, the author, again, used a generic the author used a first section that did not have a heading. When an author does that, I know that I should just ask myself a question about the background knowledge the author wants me to understand. Therefore, I created the question, what background information is the author providing me before I get to my first heading? My job at the end of reading this is to be able to talk about all of the information I need or the author has provided for me as I go into the more specific parts of the text that have headings. So in this particular one, when I got to the heading, I created a question based off of that heading. My question became, why is affluenza not a recognized illness? As I read, after I read, I got down to the end of the section and I realized it's not a recognized illness because it is really simply a popularized term that was created by an author to explain or describe the ways in which some children act. That description was never meant to be used as a defense in a criminal trial or to justify the actions of this particular young man. The second heading talks about double standard for rich and poor. As I looked at this one, I realized that the author was implying that the verdict of the judge was a double standard. So therefore, my question became, why is the verdict in this case a double standard? After I read the text, I realized that when the author said such things as this example of what is the likelihood if this was an African American inner city kid that grew up in a violent neighborhood to a single mother who is addicted to crack and he was caught 2 or 3 times, what is the likelihood that the judge would excuse his behavior and let him off because of how he was raised? Essentially, because the parent was allowed to or was able to spend $450,000 a year on a treatment facility, the child's behavior was excused. If it had been this example that's mentioned right here in the highlighted portion, that child would never have the opportunity to attend a treatment facility as opposed to going to jail. Therefore, this verdict does show a double standard. Writers organize text to help a reader create meaning. It is our job as a reader to use this organization to help us understand what the author wants us to learn after we have read the text. Your must-do for this afternoon. Please find an article on Newsella or in the Upfront magazine to practice creating guiding questions for yourself as you navigate your way through creating meaning while you read. I just want to remind you that question generation helps me focus my reading, especially when I lack background knowledge about a particular piece of text. It gives me something to work toward as I navigate my way through the piece that I'm reading.